Chapter 3. Whispers of an Ancient Fear. The cloak hung loosely around the boy's thin shoulders. It was a simple thing, woven from coarse fibers dyed with forest moss, its edges frayed from years of use. Dolo had removed it from his own back, draping it around the strange, pale figure who had fallen from the sky. The boy's bare feet moved without sound across the jungle floor as they made their way home. The boy did not seem bothered by the garment or the weight of its unfamiliarity. In fact, he seemed more curious about the texture of the fabric, running his fingers over the fibers with quiet fascination. Dolo tried to focus on the path ahead, but the jungle was no longer the same. The Verdant Forest had always been his home, a wild, breathing place of towering trees and endless green. He had learned its secrets as a child, how the roots of the ironwood trees twisted beneath the earth, how the wind carried the scent of distant predators, how the river stones whispered their stories if one listened long enough. But tonight the forest spoke differently. The ground beneath his feet hummed, faintly but undeniably, with a pulse that matched his own heartbeat. The leaves overhead seemed to breathe, their veins glowing faintly beneath the moon's gaze. The earth itself whispered beneath each step. Dolo didn't dare speak of it aloud. He glanced toward Mako. The older warrior walked several paces ahead, shoulders tense, hand resting on his axe. He hadn't said a word since the vision. But his movements were not the same. They were sharper now, more attuned. His eyes flicked toward shadows that Dolo couldn't see. His breath came in slow, measured draws, like a predator learning to hear the world differently. They both felt it, and neither of them knew what to do with it. The boy followed between them, silent and curious, his golden eyes flicking from the trees to the sky. He walked without fear, without uncertainty, as though the very land recognized him. The whispers grew louder as they walked deeper into the jungle. "We have missed you." The words drifted on the breeze, soft as a breeze through dry leaves. Dolo stiffened, slowing his steps. He turned his head, but the only thing beside him was a twisted old oak, its bark covered in pale green lichen. The voice had come from the tree. He inhaled shakily and walked on. Mako's posture shifted slightly, as if he'd heard something too. But neither of them said a word. The village fires came into view just before dawn. The Verdant tribe lived in a clearing surrounded by the colossal roots of the ancestor tree. Its trunk rose into the mist, massive and unyielding, its bark streaked with veins of pale green sap that the elders claimed were the lifeblood of the spirits. Figures moved through the clearing, warriors clutching spears, elders whispering beneath the branches, children peeking out from their shelters with wide, curious eyes. The falling star had shaken them. The rumors had spread like wildfire. Something had come, and now that something walked beside Dolo and Mako. The boy hesitated as they entered the clearing. His gaze lifted to the ancestor tree, his eyes widening slightly. He stopped walking. Dolo paused beside him. "What is it?" The boy didn't answer. His mouth opened slightly, his chest rising as if he were breathing in the tree's very essence. The glow in his golden eyes intensified. The ground beneath their feet trembled. The ancestor tree's veins pulsed, the pale green sap glowing brighter, its roots shifting with a low, groaning creak. The wind picked up, swirling through the clearing. The villagers gasped as the tree's branches shuddered, their leaves whispering like a chorus of voices. The boy closed his eyes. Dolo felt the shift in the air, the tightening of something unseen. His own pulse quickened as the whispering voices of the forest grew louder, clearer. "He has come." The words didn't come from any one place. They came from everywhere, from the ground beneath his feet, from the wind around his skin, from the tree towering above them. The boy opened his eyes and exhaled softly. The glow faded from his gaze. The wind settled, The roots of the ancestor tree stilled. The village fell into stunned silence. Mako stepped closer to Dolo, his grip tightening on his axe. "This isn't right," he muttered. Dolo swallowed hard. "I know." The villagers gathered in a circle around them now, whispering among themselves. The elders were the first to step forward. Elder Waya led them. Her staff tapped softly against the ground as she approached, her sharp, dark eyes fixed on the boy. "So," she said, voice low and steady, "it is true. The star has brought us a child." Dolo straightened. "We found him at the crater. He doesn't remember who he is or where he came from." The boy lifted his gaze to Elder Waya. He didn't flinch beneath her scrutiny. Waya's lips pressed together. "Child," she said softly, "what do you remember?" The boy hesitated. His small hands gripped the edges of the cloak around his shoulders. "I remember. The tree," he said. His voice was distant, as though he spoke from the edge of a dream. "And the light. And falling." Waya inhaled slowly. Her knuckles whitened around her staff. "The tree. You speak of the ancient world tree?" The boy nodded. "It was everything. It is where I came from." Gasps rose from the watching crowd, whispers of disbelief. The world tree was the heart of their oldest myths, the origin of life and magic, a story passed from generation to generation as legend, not truth. Mako muttered, "This can't be happening." Elder Waya turned slightly toward the gathered warriors. "Bring him to the council fire. We must speak of this at once." Joran, the war chief, stepped through the crowd then, his face rigid. His gaze lingered on the boy before shifting to Dolo. "What have you brought back, boy?" Dolo stood straighter. "I don't know, father, but we couldn't leave him there." Joran said nothing for a moment. His nostrils flared slightly as he took in the boy, the crackling energy still lingering in the air. His gaze moved to Mako. "And you? You felt it too, didn't you?" Mako didn't answer, but his silence spoke enough. The chief's eyes darkened. "Council fire, now," he ordered. The elders gathered in the great hollow beneath the ancestor tree. Smoke from the central fire curled upward, joining the sap-scented air. The boy sat cross-legged at the center, still wrapped in the cloak, while Dolo and Mako stood beside him. Dolo tried to calm his breathing. The whispering hadn't stopped since they'd entered the hollow. The tree spoke. Its voice drifted through the crackling flames and the shifting roots, soft and patient, as though awakening from a long slumber. "Welcome, firstborn." Dolo's knees weakened at the words. He glanced at Mako, who looked equally pale. The boy, however, sat perfectly still. Elder Waya leaned forward. "You," she said to the boy, "you are a child of the world tree?" The boy hesitated. I don't know. I think I fell from it." Waya's eyes flicked toward Dolo and Mako. "And you?" she asked. "You were with him when he awoke. Did you feel it?" Dolo opened his mouth, hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Yes, something touched us. I saw the tree. I felt the threads of it." Mako's jaw tightened. "We saw manna," he said, the word hanging heavy in the air. The fire crackled louder. The ground beneath them shifted slightly as though the earth itself responded. Waya's knuckles tightened on her staff. "Mana has not flowed in this world for 1,000 generations," she said. "Its power was sealed by the spirits long ago. The world was left to grow naturally, to heal from the war it once wrought." The boy's eyes lifted toward her. "The seal is broken," he whispered. The fire flared, doubling in size. The watching elders recoiled. The boy stared into the flames with an expression of quiet wonder. The heat didn't seem to touch him. Mako swore softly under his breath. Dolo could feel the pulse of it, the invisible current of power swirling through the air. It wrapped around his limbs like a faint breeze, entering his skin, filling the hollow spaces within his chest. The boy looked toward him suddenly. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't mean to give it to you." Dolo's breath caught. "Give what?" The boy hesitated, guilt flickering in his golden eyes. "The gift of mana," he said softly. "I think, when you found me, it awakened something inside you." Mako cursed again, gripping his axe like a lifeline. Elder Waya's face paled. "Spirits protect us," she whispered. The ancient world tree, after centuries of silence, had awoken, and with it, mana had returned to the land, and it had chosen them.